All right, let's talk about Steelers running back Najee Harris, who is probably at this point most known for being a running back who was drafted in the first round, right? Like that's kind of the main thing people talk about with him. But I don't know, he's interesting. For one thing, this is a stat that I think most people probably don't realize. He's had over 1,000 rushing yards for each year he's been in the league. All 3 years, he's had over 1,000. Again, that's a lot of a bulk stats type thing. As you get enough carries, you're gonna do all right. And in two of those seasons, he's had just barely over 1,000 yards, but still, it's worth noting, I suppose. The yards per carry stats is part of why I think there has been this negative perception of him. He did not get over 4 yards per carry until this season, where he had 4.1. He was 3.8 last year and 3.9 2 years ago. But I actually think he's a pretty good player. I think that doesn't tell the whole story. When you have a bad offensive line, which he's had for most of his career, that is going to make you look worse. And I do think there is a lot to like about Najee Harris's game, actually. And so that's kind of what I want to talk about in this video, where I do think he had not just his best statistical season, but just his best season, period. So I'm going to kind of try to explain why throughout the course of this video when watching film. But before we get into that, I should mention I have a movie channel. If you like movies, the link is in the description. It is Jackson Kruger Movies. I do some, film reviews, some like tier list, fun stuff like that. If it seems like it's your kind of thing, check it out. Again, link is in the description. But yeah, let's just get into Najee Harris film. Let's start off with this play. What's going to happen here is, I'm not going to describe the whole blocking concept. I'm just before each play, I'm just going to kind of, hopefully explain what I'm talking about as the plays go along. I feel like that's more interesting to watch. So maybe I'm wrong, but hopefully you find it more interesting. But when this play begins, you see that Najee Harris gets the handoff, and there isn't like a clear lane for him to run through, right? And I think that you see running backs often do one of two things in these scenarios. The first thing is they try and bounce things to outside. Hey, this play isn't going to work. No need to run into a wall. Let me see if I can make something else happen. Get outside and, get a touchdown. Sometimes you can make those things happen. The reality is, though, that sometimes works in college, often works in high school, almost never works at the NFL level. I think, for me personally, I'd probably rather a guy do what Harris is going to do. Watch him really just lower the shoulder, runs forward, and hey, you picked up 4 yards. Nothing flashy, nothing, game-changing, but again, these little things add up, right? If he instead tried to bounce things to the outside and lost a yard, or maybe just didn't, still go full force into the wall, essentially, maybe you're only gaining 1 yard, maybe you're losing a yard. Those little things do make a difference, and it can turn because again, you get this, it's now 2nd down and 6. It can help you keep possession by getting a first down. If you look at the yardage totals, the difference between having 400 yards and 403 yards isn't that much. But it could be the difference in an entire other possession, which is obviously huge. And there also are plays like this, where it's going to be a run to the offense's right. That's the way this play is designed to work. When Harris gets the handoff right here, you notice that he starts going in that direction, but actually that lane, the one I've showed you on the screen, is probably the most open on this play. That's probably where Harris should be going towards. But again, that's difficult. There is a Seattle player kind of right in his face at this point. He's going to have to move quickly. But he does. He gets the right lane, is able to run forward, and again, picks up the yards that were there to be picked up. I think that was like a 6-yard gain. It's not the flashiest play in the world, but again, noticing this stuff, getting through the right lane quickly, this is good. And this is why even when some Steelers fans were ready to run Harris out of town during his second year when things still weren't going well, I was kind of always more pro Harris because I kind of felt like, well, he's still doing the fundamental stuff. It's just not going for many yards because there aren't that many yards for him to get. And then there's also just stuff like this that I think is another thing worth talking about, because it's not just running through the lanes and getting the yards that are available. Don't get me wrong, there's value in that, but there's a lot more value in stuff like this. So once Harris gets the ball right here, he starts going, but there is 58 for Seattle, a defender who's going to be trying to tackle him and is in position to do so. It's a really good play, really good read by him getting over. But this is something Harris really, I think, kind of underratedly brings to the table, is he's just a difficult guy to bring down. As you see, he runs through that contact and is able to, again, it's nothing overly crazy. It's something that when you're watching it, you might not even notice right away that he broke a tackle. You might just say, okay, yeah, decent, 8-yard gain. Good job, Harris. But the reality is your average running back is getting tackled at the line of scrimmage at best on that play. So having Harris, who can do things above just your, replacement level running back, really just, again, that's where the value comes in. And of course, it can really work on plays like this, where, again, it's going to be kind of talking about that being able to get more yardage than another player would, being able to just kind of be tough to bring down, and the value that brings to the table. Once Mason Rudolph flips the ball back to Harris, you see right here, there's actually a couple of Seattle players who could reach over and make a tackle. So he's going to have to get through them pretty quickly. But he does. Again, he knows when to just shoot through a gap. That's what he's able to do. He gets through that gap. Unfortunately, there's now a couple of other Seattle players who are on him. But hey, really good job. Well blocked play. You're about to get a first down here. But Harris says, hey, the play's not over. I'm still on my feet. Watch him on this play. I don't even think I would describe this as a broken tackle. I would just say it took like 18 yards for him to finally get brought down after the contact. Like, he just stayed on his feet that long. He kept his feet moving, which is what they always tell you to do if you're a running back. And of course, it also works in plays like this, where, again, kind of not a goal line situation, but a second down and goal situation. So, we're getting near the goal line right here. Once this play begins, Harris takes the ball. You see him right here. Not a huge lane for him to run. And this is kind of going back to that first play of like, well, do you just run into a wall? And I kind of said earlier, yes, you do, because gaining 4 yards is valuable and it helps you. But here's the other reason you do. Watch Harris kind of run through traffic, stays on his feet. He gets a touchdown on that play. That is an impressive play if I've ever seen one. And it's due to really those two qualities that he has of not being afraid to run into contact and being pretty good at, not going down easy when there is contact. So yeah, those are most of my thoughts about Najee Harris as a running back. I think that there is plenty to like about Najee Harris' game. I'm not going to sit here and say he's running over guys every single play. No, that's not what's happening. But the reality is he's a guy who follows his assignments very well. He's a difficult guy to bring down. Like, that's a valuable player to have. It just is. And so because the Steelers have someone like that, that really helps them out, right? Again, I think for Harris, unfortunately for him, when he was drafted is always going to be a part of him as a player. Oh, he was a first-round running back and never lived up to the hype. But just because you haven't really been a complete game-changing running back as a first-rounder, the reality is most first-rounders aren't complete game-changing running backs, which is why people think it's a bad idea to draft them there, part of why. But for someone like Harris, I would bring up like a Leonard Fournette, who that went really bad. He was drafted 4th overall, and a couple years later was just cut from the Jaguars, but he went on to Tampa Bay and was able to still find ways to have success and be a valuable player. We see that happen relatively frequently as a guy gets maybe overdrafted a bit, but still ends up being a valuable player. And to me, that is where I would put Najee Harris in. I think he has been a valuable piece and is someone that I think the Steelers should be happy to have, even if, it has had its low moments, because I do think there is value with him. I just don't think he's a perfect player either. But yeah, I guess I am Najee Harris's biggest defender. I don't know, because I remember a couple years ago I was saying I don't think he's as bad as people think he is. Now I still think he's an all right player. Again, not a superstar. He's an all right player. Those are kind of my thoughts on Najee Harris. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.